So welcome everybody. I wait a few more minutes because I can see the attendees number is still growing. But in the meantime, let me introduce myself. I'm Eszter Kovács, and this is the webinar, Operational Challenges and Solutions, Integrating Drones into Controlled Airspace. This webinar is co-organized between DroneTalks, CANSO, and Airspace World 2025. Airspace World will take place in Portugal in May. So if you haven't checked out yet the webpage, please do take action. We will be there for sure. And with that in mind, I will also ask to introduce the today speakers at the webinar session. As you can see, we have 5 leaders from the ecosystem from different backgrounds. We have, maybe we can go to the next slide here, Paloma. Today we will have the speaker introduction, as I mentioned. After, we will have a panel discussion where you all can submit questions, and I also prepared a few questions to the speakers, and it will be a very interactive, open chat about the topics. And I apologize. And after, we will have the Q&A, where we also take all the questions from the audience as well, and the small thank you. So with that in mind, very briefly about myself. I'm a co-founder of DroneTalks and Murzili Consulting. DroneTalks is an educational platform where we create educational content regarding drones, advanced air mobility, ATM, UTM, harmonization. All of our content is deeply focused on facts, and we really would like to enable innovation in this space. Maybe I can ask our next speaker with that in mind, and we can go to the next slide. Eduardo García from CANSO to introduce himself. And Eduardo, the floor is yours, please.
Hello, Eszter. Hello, everyone. I'm Eduardo García. I work for CANSO, the Civil Air Navigation Service organization. My role is Senior Manager for Future Skies. I am deeply involved in all the ICAO activities related to new technologies and advanced air mobility. And in today's presentation, what I would like to do is to set the scene. I think you are going to listen very interesting presentation for the rest of the speakers, Rob, Luigi, Ignacio, telling what is really happening on this very important topic, how to integrate drones in controlled airspace. But before we start exploring what is happening right now, I would like to share with you what in CANSO we were thinking, how we were planning to address this important issue. And that's why we were fully aware that, of course, there is a strong need to make things happen in the short term. There are many business cases that they are waiting for solutions to be found, and that we can move very fast in the next years. But at the same time, we were fully aware of the complexity of this challenge that we have in front of us. So if we move to the next slide, what we decided to do, as an association, our members are not only the air navigation service providers, but also all the manufacturing industry and companies that they are somehow involved in air traffic management. We identifying the need to be more active on this topic, as you know. Normally what we do is share best practices. We help that our members, they learn from each other, and we can all improve. But in order to address this challenge, how to integrate all these vehicles with very high, we are expecting high density of vehicles with very different performances, because it's not only about the drones, it's about the flying taxis, the eVTOLs, and even more suborbital flights. We know that our current ATS systems, they were not designed to integrate all these vehicles in a safe and efficient way. We really needed to rethink our systems. And working with the principle that if we're going to go far, we need to go all together, we decided to launch a think tank. It's called CATS Global Council. CATS means Complete Air Traffic System. We created this think tank to collaborate with not only the traditional stakeholders, but also with all the innovators, or all these companies that they are working on drones, in eVTOLs, on traffic management for drones, and to work together on the transformations that will be required in order to achieve these objectives, a seamless and integrated airspace. So for the last 3 years, we have been working together, all these organizations, and I'm pleased to announce that in a couple of weeks, we are actually going to publish our CONOPS, our concept of operations, describing how the ATM systems, air traffic management in general, we need to evolve in the next 20-30 years in order to fully achieve this objective. Of course, many things will need to happen. So in this document, you will find like different phases. In the phase 1, we are trying to describe all the changes, all the transformations that will need to happen, in particular in our infrastructure. Is everything related to digitalization, virtualization, how we move into more trajectory-based operations, and how this first phase is fundamental to move to the next one, and how we can move into higher levels of automation. I think we all understand that in order to manage this high density of drones, eVTOLs, and all these vehicles with different performances, we will definitely need to implement higher levels of automation. And then how from there we can move into this our long-term objective, our vision for a seamless airspace that, of course, it will also be based on more autonomous vehicles. So as I was saying, we plan to publish this document in a couple of weeks, and it will be presented at Airspace World in Lisbon. We are planning to organize several sessions to explore in detail the content of this document. So we are really looking forward to share the work that we have been doing in the last 3 years with more than 80 organizations from all over the world on this topic. If we move to the next slide, what is also important is when we talk about this challenge and the integration of drones and advanced mobility, it's not only about airspace. And what you can see now in this slide, so we are really working very closely with ICAO in developing a vision for advanced mobility. And this slide describes the 10 pillars that we initially have identified in this ICAO group working on this vision in order to describe the advanced mobility ecosystem. And for me, these 10 pillars, they're super interesting because it really, they send a key message. When we are working on this new industry, everything related to advanced mobility, we need to address all these 10 pillars in order to be successful. So we need to focus on what needs to happen at the strategic and governance level, the policies that need to be developed, how our approach to safety, security, and of course the regulatory environment needs to evolve. As I was saying, automation, how the role of the human will evolve needs to be understood and described. How will be our relation with the society, and how we will address all the aspects related to environmental sustainability. As I'm sure Nacho will tell us, we really need to work on the physical and also digital infrastructure, Vertiports, but also B2B communications. Of course, a key challenge is everything related to airspace integration. And I think during this session, we'll be talking a lot about that and how the vehicle will evolve and everything, of course, related not only to the vehicle, but to fleet management. And a lot of effort will need to be dedicated to the workforce that will be required to create this future, the skills, licensing, training, And finally, let's say the plot of all this new ecosystem will be data and information management. And I'm very happy that this, for example, this ICAO group is really working hard on identifying what are the key enablers for each of these pillars, because then if we move to the next slide, this will allow us to all share the pathway to advanced air mobility, all the steps that will lead us to this final vision to fully integrate into controller space all these the drones, the eVTOLs. And this is just what I would like. I wanted to share with you. What now ICAO is working is on this vision, trying to describe these different steps based on the maturity of the enablers, and you know, when the key enablers will be available, how we'll be able to move from one phase to the next one that will allow us to implement more complex and advanced operations. And for me, yes, these two documents, what I was saying, the CATS CONOPS, what we have been working in this think tank launched by CANSO a few years ago, and the work that ICAO is doing, developing visions for advanced air mobility, they are key milestones that will help us to all agree on what is the strategy that we need to follow in the long term. Because what we have noticed in particular is that sometimes we are so much focused on what needs to happen in the short term for very good reasons. But our message here is we cannot forget that in order to make transformation in our industry, it takes a lot of time. And if we are not well aligned, if we do not focus on the right research, we will not be able to you know, go far. Okay, Eszter. These are my key messages.
Thank you so much. We are very excited about the paper, you know, coming Eduardo soon. And my next speaker is Rob Weaver, who is the ATM Global Business Development Lead at EVA Air Mobility. So please, Rob.
Thanks very much, and very good to be with everyone today. So I've been working on kind of future air traffic management concepts and technology since 2018. So it's great to share some of that with you today. My background is in air traffic management, having worked for the UK and Australian air navigation service providers. So if we go on to the next slide, thanks. So I work for a company called Eve. Eve is an Embraer company. Embraer, most people would have heard of, is the third largest manufacturer of commercial aircraft in the world, and also one of the leading makers of corporate jets as well. And so Eve is an AAM company, and it's really great to follow Eduardo because I'm going to talk about a real example of what he was talking about in his session. So if we go to the next slide. So we are building an eVTOL, an electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And we aim to bring this into service in 2027 globally. And this will be a 4-passenger piloted aircraft. In the future, we will eventually make an autonomous version of this. And there are other people building piloted passenger carrying eVTOLs and also working on autonomous passenger carrying eVTOLs as well. And this aircraft is designed for much higher utilization than traditional helicopters. So really maximizing the use of the aircraft, ensuring as many people can use this mode of transport as possible. We have a lift plus cruise design. There are many other types of aircraft design as well. But we're really focused on that urban air mobility mission. So aircraft operations up to about 100 kilometers or 60 miles in radius, short hops across the city to save people time, to get people to their destinations more quickly. And we believe this will be widely adopted because of the lower noise footprint of this type of aircraft. The overflight of an electric aircraft and the reduced noise footprint on the ground mean that we'll see greater support in the community for this type of aircraft. So as I say, I've been working on the ATM side of this and how we will enable this. And in fact, Eve and Embraer have worked on this challenge since they started the eVTOL project in 2017. So if we just go to the next slide, thank you. So I'll just talk a little bit about some of the challenges from an air traffic management perspective of introducing this new type of aircraft into the urban environment. So firstly, we're looking at much higher tempo of operations. As I said, much higher utilization of the aircraft. We envisage our aircraft doing 10 or 15 missions a day. And we're also looking at much higher density of operations. Obviously, as I talked about, we're hoping to have a much higher uptake of this type of aircraft compared to traditional helicopters. So when we have an increase in tempo and density, we end up with a very complex operation in the urban environment. If my flight is delayed, that delays every other flight of that aircraft that day, but it also impacts the other aircraft that are using the same ground infrastructure, which we call vertiports in advanced air mobility. So if I'm late arriving at the vertiport and then late leaving the vertiport, others that want to use that infrastructure are also impacted. So we're looking at an operational environment where we have lots of flights with short turnaround times, less time for on-ground staff to react, and a network that involves multiple different fleet operators flying different aircraft, different types of aircraft, flying at different speeds, and working with different vertiport operators, different companies running the ground infrastructure in the network. We also have the challenge that these are electric aircraft that don't like to hold. So if you hold an eVTOL, the battery drain is significant. And so we want to ensure that when we arrive at our destination, we can land and we're not being held up due to another aircraft departing or another issue at the vertiport. Other challenges exist, such as the fly time to charge time ratio of the aircraft. We have to spend quite a bit of time on the ground charging, so we need to make sure that we don't have too much delay in the air and lead to more charging being required. And obviously, as Eduardo talked about, we're going to see other low-level airspace users increasing at the same time. So not only are we introducing piloted eVTOLs into the urban environment, eventually we will see uncrewed eVTOLs launching in the same environment, and obviously drones. And this makes for a very complex use of urban airspace. So we're just going to the next slide, thanks. So we've worked on this issue globally with regulators, with air navigation service providers, with other parts of the aviation industry and the advanced air mobility industry. And we advocate for an integrated approach to air traffic management that enables all airspace users to operate in the urban environment. So that's very much agnostic to the operator. It's agnostic to the type of aircraft. We could be talking about new novel aircraft such as eVTOLs, both crewed and uncrewed. We could be talking about drones, but also traditional aircraft like helicopters and general aviation, and ensuring that they can all make use of the same airspace. And we look at this through the lens of the ICAO key performance areas. So I won't go through them now, but ensuring that we have capacity in the airspace, capacity in the ground infrastructure, efficient flights, flexibility to reroute to new destinations, and most importantly for UAM, predictability. So we know our flight is going to occur and we can get to our destination on time. So these are some of the challenges that we see, and see some of the key performance areas that we need to focus on to improve how the urban airspace works. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the introduction. Very exciting to see how much progression you had during the last couple of years. My next speaker is Luigi Brucculeri, if I pronounce it well. If not, I apologize already. Luigi, who is the head of research and business development and eFlight, please.
Thank you, Eszter. Good morning and good afternoon. Depends where you are. Yes, my name is Luigi Brucculeri. I'm the head of research and business development at eFlight. eFlight is a company of the INAV group and dealing with services to enable UAS operations. I'm as well the head of the industrial research and demonstration initiative at INAV for the more wider responsibility in the research area with a higher TRL in INAV side. Then we can go on the company itself. So eFlight, as I said, is a company of the INAV group dealing with the services for UAS operation. We, of course, focused on UAS traffic management and USpace being, of course, a company in Italy. So we are, of course, designated in Italy as the platform and I don't see anymore the slides, but I remember.
We're working on the slides. Apologize, 1 minute.
Yes, don't worry. Take your time. I can continue, say that, of course, the flight is designated in Italy as the platform for registration and geo-awareness at national territory. The flight is as well designated as a common information service provider in Italy, as a single common information service provider in Italy. And we certified as a common information service provider in November last year. We are also recently certified as a Uspace service provider. So we are, as far as I know, the first USSP in Europe certified. The flight, of course, is a company owned in the INAV group, but also co-owned by Leonardo. Next slide, please. Considering the framework and the European framework, of course, we can consider three different platforms in our solution kit. One platform for the whole national provision of services, but in the Uspace Airspace, of course, we have two dedicated platforms for the centralized common information service provision and Uspace service provision. Next slide gives you an idea of what the services inside each of the platform contains. I will say that, of course, we are customizing our platform according to the regulation. Currently in Italy, we are also having a planning at national level and not only in the Uspace Airspace. And so the national platform can be wider according to the need. That's all from my side. Of course, we are focusing more on the airspace, access of the of operation, and so enabling WASP operators to access the airspace.
Thank you, Luigi.
Welcome.
And our last speaker, but not least, José Ignacio Rodríguez from Bluenest by Global Via. Please, José Ignacio.
Yeah, hello, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm José Rodríguez. I'm working in Bluenest by Global Via. I come from being a telecommunications engineer, but I always was in love with drones, with aircraft. I come from a military Air Force family. So I like to be pioneering in this world and to set the foundations, okay? Because it's good to be a drone pilot, but it's even better to allow hundreds and thousands of drone pilots to take off and land very safely in drone ports or even vertiports. So yeah, what is Bluenest by Global Via, where I work? We try to create this nest for these new birds coming to the ecosystem, to the innovative air mobility ecosystem. We try to have a safe place for them to land, to increase all the contingencies, to create a new business line for a company that is Global Via. Global Via is doing a bit of everything in the ground infrastructure. They're doing highways, metro, railways. So what was lacking was the 3D mobility, the air side of mobility. And we expected that this is a great opportunity to be sustainable, to become more efficient, and to bridge places that are now remote, and separate apart. And with a low effort, just moving in the sky, you can just deploy digital corridors, let's say very light airways or airspaces that can allow everybody and cargo also to move from one place to the other and jump mountains and bridge rivers and make everything more efficient and automated. So how do we learn? How do we try to improve our products? How do we try to mature and be pioneers? So we are working with companies like Rob here. We are doing integrations. We do a lot of research and development projects in Europe. We are in projects in Madrid with the hospitals. We are in test in the Port of Sevilla. We are even in Eureka project designing contingencies for vertiports with companies like Lilium, Volocopter, some setbacks there, but okay, we are just defining agnostic vertiports for all kind of companies, for all kind of eVTOLs, airlines, and so on. We are working in Eureka, in Welcome for Airspace also. We are doing our own activities for learning, like building a heliport in Doha in Qatar in the World Cup. Also, we tried, no, we did actually, we didn't try, we just did it. We deployed a vertiport at an airport in Costa Rica last year in March. And yeah, this year still we are trying to surprise the people with some connectivity of cargo, medical cargo in the Canary Islands. Also, we will see something of this in May. And we will be speaking also in the Airspace World in CANSO in Lisbon. Yeah, so we are learning by doing. We are already in over 5 projects. We are working with over 5 eVTOL companies. And we have even our own passenger air taxi, our own fixed wing, BB-Lost, Rigitech Eiger, and also some multi-rotors for making our own tests. So we can control very well our release for Vertiport control system solution every month. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say from this slide that, yes, we have many benefits from the advanced or innovative air mobility. And every month we solve 2 or 3 problems, but other 5 appear. So being a pioneer is not so easy. Breaking the air and the ground and the walls, it's just a matter of collaborative effort with all the different companies and also having a strong team of believers. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So with that in mind, we arrive to our Q&A part. I would like to ask the audience also to submit their questions, in the Q&A chat. In the meantime, I kickstart with mine. So, for first, I think one of the most important question to Eduardo and maybe all participants, attendees of the speakers can share opinion about this. Why those drones are not flying yet? We're talking about integrating drones to the controlled airspace, right? But what are the critical barriers today, Eduardo, why they are not flying? Hundreds and hundreds of them already.
Thank you, Eszter. I think yes, it's a great question, and I'm sure the other speakers will also have their opinion. Of course, there are many. As Nacho was saying, we still need to work on many things to make this happen. I would like just to briefly highlight some of the key challenges that we still have ahead of us, starting with some technological gaps, very important ones, but also about processes that need to adapt the current flight rules, the airspace structures, the infrastructure even, and of course the regulatory framework. With the technological gaps, which I think is a very important issue, I think even we have seen a lot of progress on detect and avoid systems. We know these are critical for enabling safe drone operations beyond visual line of sight, particularly in control or congested airspace. So we are aware that there are some DAA solutions available today, but they are well in capability, maturity, and certification status, and are not yet fully trusted for autonomous conflict avoidance in all operation scenarios. For me, this is key, and of course there are other key technologies that need even more research related to vehicle-to-vehicle communication, and of course digital conspicuity. We know that is the big elephant in the room. We need all the vehicles in the air to be visible in order again to go far, and that is an area that is still will require a lot of research. I'm sure my colleagues will be able to complement my answer.
Yes, I was wondering if anyone else has any view on it. Maybe Luigi, why the Italian sky is not full of drones yet? Just wondering, your thoughts.
Yes, I think it is always the story to manage the The ground risk, I think it's the most critical thing that is blocking the issue, the delivery. So we experienced several experiments, no? And always we found a solution for the risk. In general, apart of a few small cases where the situation was blocking airports completely, we always managed to allow from an air risk part the operation. The ground risk is still the problem, and it means that we need the solution that are more robust and more attractive from this perspective, let me say.
Exactly. And Rob, you know, now Luigi just mentioned the infrastructure challenge. I mean, around risk, I counted infrastructure as well. But what other operational challenges you see, you know, as a key, you know, operator? So what other reasons you would like to highlight for a faster integration of these drones and eVTOL, of course, to the controlled airspace?
So I'll maybe start by talking about eVTOLs. So if we had a type certified eVTOL today, it could probably fly in traditional airspace or in Class G airspace, uncontrolled airspace already. However, if we want to run a commercial business, if we want to make revenue out of a fleet operation, we need to manage the delay and the disruption that we know occurs in every aviation operation. So all around the world, every day, planes are delayed, flights are disrupted, and we know this will occur from day one with an urban air mobility service, for an air taxi service. So one of the crucial early challenges and operational challenges for eVTOL operations is around that flow of the aircraft, managing the delay and disruption, dealing with the fact that we have very limited ground infrastructure where the aircraft can land. So ensuring that we get the greatest use of that, but also in a way that we can ensure that if flights are delayed, it's not going to impact the network completely and everything's not going to grind to a halt. And that is really an air traffic management challenge. Managing the flow, that trajectory-based operations is really what we need to see occurring from day one. Looking at the question a bit more broadly around the kind of operational challenges of integrating eVTOLs and drones, that comes down to a more fundamental issue of how we enable everybody to use the airspace. So obviously we're seeing a lot of work at the moment about how to integrate drones into, and I'm particularly talking about airspace in urban environments, say between 500 feet and 3,000 feet. We're seeing a lot of work in the U-space area, in other parts of the world as well, in how to integrate drones into airspace that's used by traditional aviation operations. We're also seeing work in the AAM industry on how to manage the flow of eVTOLs, but we don't really have this overall plan. How do we integrate helicopters, general aviation, drones, piloted eVTOLs carrying passengers, uncrewed eVTOLs carrying passengers, and at all of these at potentially higher volumes that we have today? And so that is a real pressing challenge. What is the roadmap? And I think this is what Eduardo talked about at the beginning. What is the roadmap that takes us from what we're doing today to enabling all these different airspace users using their best technology in the most efficient way to share that airspace? And that is a fundamental challenge that I think we have to address quite quickly, so we all know where we're going to go over the next 5 to 10 years.
I mean, is that the solution use space? You know, some people would say that one of the puzzle, you know, to that. I know Luigi and has some experience on that. If you maybe want to, you know,
Yes.
mention.
Yes, of course. USpace introduced a new way, instead of the conventional traffic management, introduce a more collaborative traffic management techniques and introduce strategical deconfliction. Of course, it is the first conceptualization of the USpace, that is based on full strategical deconfliction, and I think it's the right way to also enable urban air mobility at the beginning, because Rob has said that since from the beginning there are a lot of complexity in these new vehicles that maybe for endurance or other reason and complexity, it's better to not to touch too much with the traffic management measure when they are flying. So it's better to give authorization to fly to A to B and don't touch during the flight, instead of having maybe more adaptive or dynamic traffic management measure while flying. Maybe it's possible, but for emergency purposes, but not for a normal tactics. So I think, of course, it is not a generic statement for every eVTOL, because we say that VCA can be different and implement different use cases, but the majority of them, in my opinion, can be, especially if unmanned, not the one manned, can be enabled by USpace, because the mechanism of the flight authorization, the traffic information, the identification, and geo-awareness, of course, give the of course with the required level of performance that an airspace risk assessment can determine, can establish a good infrastructure for the airspace access, and then of course enable it. We have a project, Eureka, already mentioned by where of course USpace is under validation for these purposes, and just to check if there are new elements, especially for the newcomers in the ecosystem, the Vertiport manager and so on, that of course can require an evolution of USpace in order to take on board as well this new stakeholder in the ecosystem. So we are very interested in the outcome of this project to, of course, steer as well in this direction.
And if I know, José also involved with that project.
Indeed.
And testing. So maybe, José, what are the key learnings from this project already? What Luigi mentioned.
Well, a big learning is that, the eVTOLs still need more time to type certify. We have these setbacks, everybody knows about Lilium, and then Volocopter being now part of a China company. We were so dreaming, so enthusiastic to do this vertiport control validation with the aircraft. We need to still to fight. We need still to keep dreaming. Still many things are to be tested, like USpace. I'm working with Luigi also in Welcome besides Eureka. And there it was 3 years of heavy learning, very, very productive project, where we are already, mixing 4 USSPs. We are doing interoperability. We are demonstrating this is possible to mitigate risk in the air also, especially. And in Eureka, yes, we have been, investigating a lot the ConOps, how we mix, a pilot in an electrical vehicle, and you mix with other drones that are maybe non-collaborative coming into your vertiport. So we are assessing different contingency and emergency scenarios, while we are building new concepts like the Vertiport Network Manager, collaborative decision-making for Vertiport. So Eureka had some issues, but it's so positive for all the industry to be there together and learning from each other, that I think is the right way to continue. And hopefully this year with the new call, we get other new projects where we can finalize this learning and finally do real eVTOL flights in real vertiports. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I see a lot of questions. I will pick a few from the audience, but first, José, I mean, I can ask the same from you, like I did ask in the beginning. So why the city is not full of vertiports yet, So is it like economical reason, or is it more like city planning infrastructure challenges, or what is the biggest obstacle to have those vertiports already? I don't know. Maybe also after Luigi in Rome, you know, or in Milan, or also, of course, Eduardo, Rob. But first, maybe Jose, you want to take this?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, we want to have these vertiports. When we have passenger eVTOL certified, we will start having the need and the demand for big vertiports. The urban areas are very, demanded, expensive. It's not easy to deploy a vertiport in the middle, in the downtown of Madrid or London or Roma or Paris. And we are lacking the certified eVTOL. We saw it in Paris Olympics, okay? We wanted to see these trials, and in the end, it was just possible outside of the city. We need some more public acceptance. We need the municipalities to start, reserving spaces. I see this in some regions in Asia, where every time they build a new city or new neighborhoods, they are already allocating spaces for vertiports. We should do something like that. We should start preparing for this future, even if we start with cargo. We don't start with passengers. We should test, cargo outside of urban areas, in sparsely populated areas, rural, regional, advanced mobility, coastal areas, mountain places like this, where you are not imposing a ground risk, okay, over population, and starting with cargo. Later you can enter into suburban areas and urban areas with cargo, and finally you can incorporate passengers. But it's taking time, okay? It's taking time. We are starting to see already certified C-class mark drones for cargo, and we are starting to see BVLOS corridors even in Germany and France, where labs and hospitals are already being connected by drones every day, with corridors of already over 20, 30 kilometers. So we are lacking some time. We are lacking a bit of evolution in the battery technology. We are lacking also a bit of support from the municipalities to allow us to place sandbox in the cities, to at least deploy cargo operations for the population to start embracing this new technology also.
I mean, it's indeed a complex topic. I mean, Eduardo, you have anything to add on that? And I also, took a few notes here from the questions. A lot of people asks about this, how this new ATM will look like, or do we gonna still use the old-fashioned technologies on ATM, or there is some new digital ATM coming? Is UTM mandatory? They asking those questions. Maybe Eduardo, how do you see this?
Well, very briefly from my side, something that I think has been said by most of the speakers, Rob and Nacho, they were stressing the need. We are addressing a very complex issue. With it's multidimensional, and we need to be working, as I was presenting at the beginning of the session, on all these different pillars. We cannot forget anyone. We need to be working on airspace integration, but also we need to be working with the cities, with the governments, developing the right policies, working on the regulatory framework, and building not only the physical infrastructure, but the digital infrastructure. And that's why I strongly support documents. For example, in Europe, the European Commission, they published the Drone Strategy 2.0. Now ICAO is working on this holistic vision, and I like the name because definitely this is, we are not just simply trying to introduce a new type of vehicle in the airspace. The impact of what we are trying to achieve is huge, and it is probably the biggest challenge that aviation has faced in the last 50 years. And yes, from my side, just to highlight the need to work all together and to share and support all these strategic documents, so we all understand and we play our role. And what is very important, we all feel accountable. We really need to work all these stakeholders, and not just only the aviation stakeholders, but we need to be working with new stakeholders like the cities, and that we all feel accountable, and that we all understand also the benefits. We need to be realistic if we want to be successful. That would be my main takeaways.
Rob, I see you agree. with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, advanced air mobility is both global and local. So down at the local level, it is really important to get local communities, local governments to really buy in to what we want to do with air taxi services, with urban air mobility. And that requires us to use existing aviation infrastructure, so existing heliports, existing airports, but also get land planning approvals and have guidance around land planning for new vertiports. But then it's also global as well. So our aircraft will fly all over the world. We have a backlog of 2,900 aircraft ordered across every continent. And so ensuring the approaches that are taken for air traffic management work all over the world is really important for us, because we want our aircraft and the systems on our aircraft to integrate with air traffic management systems in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East. And so while concepts like USpace are working towards some of these challenges, I really support what Eduardo is saying around that global perspective and bringing organizations like CANSO and ICAO to chart a roadmap for us for how we integrate all of these things. We need to take the concepts that are in air traffic management and move them forward using concepts from UTM, from USpace, that we see for more higher technology capability and a lower cost, and bring about a kind of a new approach to all of this. But we need to do it in a strategically planned way so that different parts of the world can progress at the right speed for their local community, and we can enable this new form of aviation and this new opportunity for communities and for economic development.
Well, I have a few topics here. You know, I loved when you say you have 2,900 aircraft ordered, if I picked it well.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of comments about revenue generation, you know, like a lot of people interested on this, you know, here, if I read the Q&A, a lot of people want to understand how this whole ecosystem gonna survive financially. You know, there is like a lot of question on when can we offer services in urban and regional environments, you know, when this can kickstart. So what I really like, I think, and also Luigi and Rob, maybe you want to talk this. So it started to be a reality, right? So there are real orders, you know, coming to your directions. That means there is an actual need, if I understand well, Rob, on this from client side, you know. So it's not like we just want to create our own solution. There is a user who needs this. And yeah, maybe Rob, you want to, yeah.
Very much so. So if you take Sao Paulo in Brazil, it's the world's largest air taxi market at the moment. And so commuters can spend up to 3 hours on average a day in traffic. And obviously there's a real advantage for being able to use the air to reduce that travel time. There are places that are difficult to connect by existing modes of transport. Be it over water to islands, or where the transport infrastructure is not effective that currently exists. And so we see a really strong market demand for urban air mobility to grow beyond the current helicopter operations that exist around the world. And that's really enabled by the lower noise profile of this type of aircraft as well, which will mean they're more community friendly. So yeah, we've seen extremely strong interest in our products from a range of operators, from the big end of town, United Airlines, through to here in Australia, a very small aircraft helicopter operator who's sort of just to put a letter of intent for just a small number of aircraft. So a very strong interest, and it's not just Eve, I should say. There are a number of industry players that are planning to launch operations in the next few years, and many places around the world. So they might not be in every city this decade, but we will certainly see the introduction and initial growth of the industry globally through to the end of the 2020s.
That's a great news. And Luigi, How about drones in Italy? There is also this demand, because I know you just got certified as D-Flight, right?
Yes.
Follow this demand. That's what's going on.
So if we talk innovative air mobility, of course, we are in the situation of several, of course, initiative ongoing, and of course, our wish is that the number explode as much as possible in order to create the market as we wish to have. So that's, but more pragmatic and concrete, I think, is the market of cargo and small drones. Of course, the flight is based on this at the moment, and we are already operative, no, to provide services for this segment. We are, of course, promoting the first U-Space bubble in Italy soon, and of course giving the possibility to enlarge this experience in other places as soon as possible. So we are ready for the U-Space implementation as is. I read in the comment someone, of course, highlighting that is the U-Space the solution also for innovative air mobility or VCA in general? Of course, Eureka started with this hypothesis, considering U-Space not as EU 664, 5, and 6 regulatory framework. We have to understand U-Space as a concept that is starting with the current implementation and expressing the infrastructure to enable drones operation in Europe. So if drone taxi is one of the drone operation in Europe, so we have to see how U-Space will evolve in order to accommodate this. Maybe it will be, of course, taking into consideration the new stakeholders like the Vertiport manager and introducing new common information. So the localization of the Vertiport is another drone aeronautical information that have to enlarge the information, to have other check in the flight authorization request, the availability of the Vertiport and other information like this. So I think not constrained by the regulation itself, Eureka is looking at how the collaborative traffic management can be used by innovative air mobility. That's the principle behind. And this is the way D-Flight believes to follow. So U-Space is not only for small drones. Otherwise,
yes,
it's a too complicated stuff for nothing, I guess. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, no, totally understand your point. And Jose, you know, now I think Luigi explained how Italy looks into this, and we heard from Rob like the global mindset as well, and also, you know, Eduardo explained the roadmap. But you know, you work both in Latin America and Spain, right? So if you want to compare the experience, now we go around the globe a little bit. What is the main difference between Latin America and the Spanish, you know, projects you have?
Well, the regulation is not so developed in Latin America or even less in Africa. They are waiting for ICAO to regulate, okay, but ICAO is taking its time. If you need to regulate at the international level, you need to be very careful, okay, how to cover all the different areas and the different cultures and so on. My experience with EASA or European region and AESA, the Spanish regulator, they were very cautious at the beginning, but they are starting to open routes and real operations, viable, affordable, and business for some operators in Europe. So in France, Italy, Germany, we're starting to see Amazon trying to open their air division. We see labs and so on. In Latin America, it's easier to do some testing, some experimentation. We did some very advanced parallel operations in the Liberia airport in Guanacaste region, the Pacific coast. And we can see, if you want a video of this later on. No, you can put it later. Okay, you can show it now. So here we did parallel operations with an OTAN Yeah. So I can explain. So our approach was to demonstrate that you could connect an airport with a luxury hotel that is 25 kilometers away. People are taking by car around 1.5 hours. And when it's raining and the roads are closed, they can take 2 or 3 hours to go make only 20 kilometers. In Europe, we have more developed infrastructure all over the country. And in some countries in Latin America, they are using still helicopters when they want to really be there in 20 minutes. We wanted to demonstrate that you can safely take off from an airport with 300 jumbos coming every day mostly from California, even Europe. And we could connect to a heliport that is 25 kilometers away in a matter of 20 minutes. So we flew first in point A and then in point B. And yeah, this route was already 5 kilometers over the golf course and the beach in Conchal Reserva in Guanacaste. And it was a matter of hours to deploy a vertiport over a heliport or to coordinate with the tower control. Okay, we have these 2 minutes of a slot. We can fly in parallel to the runway. We wouldn't think to fly perpendicular and get near the aircraft that was landing. But we had a NOTAM there. The pilots knew that the eVTOL was having a test, was testing there at the ramp. So they were informed with a NOTAM and from the tower. And nobody got scared, nothing happened. We were moving sideways in the airport. And then the real flight was 5 kilometers at the beach from a heliport. And this was very well coordinated with the DGAC, with the regulator in Costa Rica. And yeah, it was a really nice learning that it's not so dangerous if you prepare with some time and everybody's informed and everybody's on the same page. If you have some pilot that was not informed, then you could create a risk. But everybody was there, very well aligned with the strategy and with the testing. So it took 4 months to get a very advanced test in Costa Rica. Sometimes in Europe, it takes 1 year to close a full aerodrome and to fly something very simple. But I see progress. I see progress because they are starting to trust in the technology and in the operator's proficiency, of course.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So maybe we can put by the Q&A slide until I pick some questions, because we are actually have a few minutes left, from the webinar. I love this last question. They say, how will you manage 50% of the passengers want this service every day? So I guess maybe actually this could be a good one of the good closing question. What do we see about the demand and the future? Let me a little bit reshape this question. What do we think we need to manage if the demand is really coming towards our direction? And of course the regulation that we talk, but what else is still key enabler if there is we becoming an Uber kind of activity, and like people ordering every minute from the phone. Eduardo, what's your thought? How far we are from there? Maybe is it close, very far? You don't need to say exact years, but how far regarding eVTOL, but also maybe with drones we can mention, and what do we need to manage if the demand is really coming to our direction?
I think we all understand that right now is the moment to focus on the business cases that they are bringing more benefit to the society, to our world. I think we were so excited with the technology that sometimes we felt that we were in this hype because the technology was fascinating, and just to be able to do it, to do something was just very rewarding. And I think we are all aware that yes, we need the demand. We need the business to take off. And for that, we will need to explain very well and work all, together, identifying all the applications that we know there are so many different applications that we can use drones, the eVTOLs, and focus on the ones that they are bringing more benefit to our society. I think this is what I think is the moment now. We have been doing it for the last years. Of course, it's not like we should start now, but sometimes, yes, it felt that yeah, we were just too excited with certain applications without really, you know, identifying the benefits.
And Luigi, what's your closing remarks?
So I think we have to be prepared for a demand, because the use cases and there are some very interesting and promising. So we have to be ready from the traffic management perspective. We have to be ready at big demand. That's even if today we have no let me say the number, but we know that if someone succeed, to replicate is easy. So we can escalate with numbers in an easy way. So I think we have to be ready. Regarding the Uber example you gave, of course, we need a lot of innovation and research. So that's another closing remark. Let's keep working on research. Also, because of my hat of research, I spend a few words on publishing the need of further evolution of technology from the WAS side, but also from traffic management side. So I think we are at the beginning.
Thank you, Jose. Any closing remark on those?
On one side, I want demand because it will boost the technologies needed to get more ranges and more safety and more type certificates. The same way these mobile phones use nickel cadmium batteries, and suddenly, wow, the batteries were slim and light, and it was lithium battery. Now the lithium battery is not enough for the vertical takeoff and landing. It's consuming a lot of the range, and this is not making still attractive, you know, to substitute the current helicopters. So first we need better batteries, and then we need automation and autopiloting that is certified for, you know, not having this risk in the equation. I mean, this a cost in the equation. We need to control the risk, and the safety is first. But I see a lot of profitability when this is autopiloted in 10 years, 15 years from now. At the moment, the Uber of the skies, I think at least a decade is needed, and I welcome this time because there are so many things to be solved that I welcome, you know, and I'm very happy to go little by little with cargo, with human piloted, remotely piloted, then autopiloted, and going into the cities and creating dynamic routing. At the beginning, it's going to be very, you know, reserved corridors and things like that. But we need to walk these steps. It happens in every technology that is starting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob. Any closing remarks on that?
Yeah, look, I agree with the other panelists. I mean, it's a really exciting future we're talking about here. We're just trying to get this industry launched, but I think we need to be prepared for something quite exciting. In some parts of the world, some real scale will occur. It won't occur everywhere. Not everywhere in the world will have large-scale eVTOL operations, but the developers are working towards a manufacturing approach that is really large-scale if the demand comes, and we expect to see it in some parts of the world. So it's really for ATM and UTM to respond to that and think about how it can support that future potential. So it's a really exciting future, lots of exciting work for us all to do, and lots of really hard challenges. But that's the best thing about this industry. Exciting future.
Fantastic. I think we run out of time. Thank you so much for all the speakers.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sure we meet at the Airspace World conference. We encourage everybody to attend, and you will be able to watch the recording on YouTube. Thank you so much.